Good morning. This week's Parsha, we're finishing up the story of the Jews in the wilderness. Next week, we begin Moses' recounting of what happens of the 40 years in the wilderness. So it's very important. But what's equally important is something very important that happens in this week's Parsha, in this week's portion. That is that the Jews we divided the land between the different tribes. Each tribe has their own specialty, and the land is inherited by the tribes. That the Jewish people are to remain a whole. Yes, we're 12 tribes dividing the land, and then you add the Levites who don't get any portion, but their job is to run the spiritual aspects of the people. But what's important is also what happens with the tribe of Reuven, Reuven, Gad, and Dan. They are sheep herders, and they see the land on the other side of the Jordan is good land. So they say, listen, we'd like to be on this side of the Jordan because it's good land for us. It'd be very good for us. Moses agrees, but with a major stipulation that they remember their part of the nation, that they don't begin working their land until the entire nation is liberated. And the entire land of Israel is liberated and in the hands of all the Jewish people. In other words, you cannot just think of yourselves. You're part of a whole. Yes, the tribes have their internal issues, as we saw with the daughters of Zelophehad. The important thing is that yes, they could inherit, but they could only marry within their own tribe. So the tribe does not lose out on their getting married. So this is an important issue. It's an important issue for the nation. Remember you're part of a whole, that you're not just individuals. It's when we begin to think of ourselves only as ourselves or only within our families, and we don't think about how we are part of a whole, that we get into trouble. And the whole has to think about the individual. Much like, say, the US Constitution, very controversial, this whole issue of the Electoral College. But when you think about it, it is ingenious that this way the big states cannot override the wishes of the smaller states in population. That you have to listen to their needs. That you have to understand that to be part of the whole, you have to understand the minority also has needs. So long as the minority does not try to override the majority, but the majority cannot override the minority. Very interesting. You have to think of both. The majority, they think one way, minority thinks another way, and you have to bring in consideration for all these people. So that's so true with what's going on here. These two and a half tribes want to be on the other side of the Jordan. We understand it. We admire it. But we cannot allow their personal needs to override the majority. We cannot allow the majority needs to override their needs. It's a very important balancing act. Something to think about.